People underestimate how fun cybersecurity can be, how engaging it can be. It very often a field that requires you to problem solve. And I think this is what I like about it. It requires a lot of collaboration and I love working with people. So I found areas in cybersecurity that are often underestimated. Personally, I find them very engaging.
Welcome to the CMMC Proof Podcast. I am your host, Derrich Phillips, a Certified CMMC Assessor. And today I have Tatiana Marin joining me. She is the Information Security and Operations Director for Kruze Consulting. How are you, Tatiana?
I'm very good. It's such a pleasure to be invited to your podcast. I have watched other podcasts of yours and I regularly read your newsletters and I'm always impressed with the material you put out there. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. It certainly is a community of creators. So I enjoy doing podcasts. I could kind of just sit back and ask questions and just listen to awesome stories like yours. I'm sure the listeners are going to find out. So before we jump into it, tell us a little bit about Kruze Consulting.
Yeah, Kruze Consulting is an accounting and finance firm that was, if I remember correctly, founded in 2012 by an amazing woman entrepreneur, Vanessa Kruze. So the company has been around for a while. I joined as employee number 12 in 2017, and now the company has over 200 people. And it's an environment that it's set up fully remotely. So, and it's been like that before the pandemic. So we've been in this remote environment for a while.
Okay. I'm looking forward to talking more about the growth y'all experience at rapid growth. That's great. But in terms of cybersecurity, here's about what do you like doing outside of?
That's a great question. I have a rather unusual hobby for a cybersecurity professional, or maybe not. I don't know. I love writing short stories. I love reading, but I like a lot writing short stories, and they can be a reflection of people I meet or situations or just personal thoughts on a variety of topics. I do sometimes write short stories for kids as well. That's kind of short stories that can teach them something.
Ooh, I learned something new today about you. I didn't know that. Have you published any books yet or considering publishing?
I have a couple that I've definitely been itching to maybe reach out to publications that would be interested to look at them. I have not formally published anything yet. I have shared them, on social media some time ago. I don't do that anymore. And I had people that care to read them, but no formal publication yet.
Cool. As far as with Amazon and self-publishing, it makes it pretty easy. My wife and I, we published a children's book series a couple years ago, and I published a couple other self-published books, kind of like self-help. That's more my forte.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think about that before. That's actually a great tip.
There's people who are on the New York Times bestsellers list and they're self-published.
That's amazing.
So it's the gatekeepers are not really as powerful anymore. You can just go straight to the source. So
yeah,
we can talk more about that offline if you're curious to know more about it. What the experience is like, but it's not that awesome. Now, in your role as Information Security and Operations Director, what does your day-to-day look like?
I think because I'm the only internally or full-time person dedicated to this position, in a lot of the situations, the decision maker, what we're focusing on today, what we're focusing on in the next 3 months and in the next year, how do we dedicate the resources, financial and people, humans, to accomplish what we want to accomplish? So I'd say a lot of the time, my day starts with, what do I have planned for today? Do I have outstanding things? In a way, I started as a operations professional, and I feel like all those skills and habits I apply in cybersecurity as well in regards to how I approach projects and planning and resources.
Okay. And knowing a little bit about your journey into information security, it was kind of the non-traditional path, but I find it really inspiring. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, CMMC Proof Compliance Acceleration System.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by the complex world of CMMC compliance? You're not alone. Small to mid-sized defense contractors are often swamped by the massive list of requirements, unsure of where to begin, lacking resources, and fearing assessment failure. But there's a solution. CMMC Proof, your compliance acceleration system. Unlike typical GRC tools, CMMC Proof breaks down the process into 5 easy-to-follow phases, guiding you through each step of your compliance journey. With everything you need in one place, from CMMC Level 1 and 2 requirements to evidence tracking and more, you'll never feel lost again. Get CMMC compliant faster and easier than ever before. Our system ensures nothing is missed, saving you time and effort. Built by CMMC certified assessors with decades of experience, CMMC Proof delivers real-world expertise and guidance you can trust. By the time your assessment comes, you won't just be ready, you'll be confident. Visit CMMCproof.com to start your 7-day free trial and accelerate your CMMC compliance today.
So can you tell us just how you progressed from when you first started at Kruze to your role now, and so how that those diverse experiences help in your current role?
Yeah, non-traditional is definitely a good way to put it. I came with a background in foreign languages to Kruze Consulting, and I started as an office manager in 2017. And shortly after that, I was promoted to operations manager, and I very quickly started taking on IT responsibilities, internal troubleshooting, managing the IT vendor, managing vendors in general, implementing projects, identifying areas of weakness for us in regards to how we manage our technology, and really try to improve that as much as I could, considering the limitations of the company size at the time, my personal knowledge of the technology, and the technical resources and the technical team we had at the time. As I spent more time in that role, I thought at the time that I'm madly in love with operations, and that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I went to the University of Portland and I pursued a master's degree in operations and technology management, which I successfully graduated in December 2023. But within that program, I took a cybersecurity class with Professor Lucky that I'm going to probably talk about for the rest of my life. It was one of the best classes I ever took. That made me realize that I love operations, but I think I love cybersecurity more. So much so that after I graduated my master at University of Portland, I decided to pursue a second master's specifically in cybersecurity at Harvard School of Extended Studies, which I'm currently in the program. Yeah, so that's how I ended up doing cybersecurity.
Like you have a thirst for knowledge and learning in the right field.
I think people underestimate how fun cybersecurity can be, how engaging it can be. It very often field that requires you to problem solve, and I think this is what I like about it. It requires a lot of collaboration, and I love working with people. So I found areas in cybersecurity that are often underestimated. Personally, I find them very engaging.
Absolutely. Again, your story is really inspiring because I'm contacted frequently by people who are interested either switching career fields or getting into cybersecurity. And the first thing I ask them is, what do you want to specialize in? What areas really interest you? Because cybersecurity is so broad. And a lot of times they think, okay, cybersecurity, you're a hacker or ethical hacker or just something where you have to be deeply technical.
Yeah.
And obviously there are those positions, but there are so many roles within cybersecurity like compliance and privacy and all those things where it requires more diverse skill sets and communication skills. So I do find it insightful that you have a background and kind of professionally trained in different languages. See how that can also play a role and help be successful within cybersecurity, because a big part of it is translation. You have to translate those really technical topics into plain English for the stakeholders. So can you tell us more how you approach that, or working with different stakeholders, and how you leverage your internal team and external team?
Absolutely. So I think it's, again, going back to having those relationships as you work in cybersecurity and having a continuous communication with the general team, but also with the executive team. It's part of the job to be able to report on the potential threats and be advisor on what's priority one today. What can we afford today to cover? What technology should we consider today to make sure that we're best protected? As for the external partners, I think having a healthy relationship with the technical team matters a lot, because they can suffer of burnout. They can miss things if they're overwhelmed. So understanding how their jobs go can make all the difference in cybersecurity, and being mindful of what experience they have matters a lot. In the end, the leadership in cybersecurity is the one that is gonna, maybe protect is not the right word, but vouch or be supportive of the technical team, which is the baseline for cybersecurity. If you don't have a good technical team, it's hard to be successful.
Right. Certainly need that senior leadership buy-in.
Yeah. I'd say specifically for Kruze, more so the relationship with the external partners is so critical, because we have a lot of them, a lot of vendors that are responsible, like all the companies out there that are responsible for our security posture. So having a one-on-one almost relationship with a specific person, the vendor, is critical, and maintaining that relationship so you know what state the vendor is in. Are they successful? Are they growing? Are they going to disappear from the market in the next 2 years? Where does that leave you as someone that uses their services. So having that relationship, I feel like is very important.
Absolutely. I always say cybersecurity is a team sport.
Yeah.
It takes that effort and then just those relationships, fostering those relationships, good communication.
Absolutely.
And that's areas that a lot of techies, they lack in that area. It's hard for them, maybe more, and they want to interact with the technology, but not necessarily the people.
Absolutely.
The one that brings in that skill set to cybersecurity, where they have the people skills and understand the importance of those relationships really far in cybersecurity. Definitely. Indeed. Now, you talked about being at number 12 as far as an employee, Kruze Consulting, and you all have grown over 200 employees in a short period of time. Can you talk to us about that growth and what it's been like in terms of making sure you're growing responsibly from a cybersecurity standpoint? So being a number 12 employee at Kruze Consulting, and mentioned that you're all over 200 employees now, so that's really substantial growth in a short period of time for a small business. How have you been able to prioritize information security with that responsible growth and growing so quickly? And what are some challenges you encountered with that such rapid growth?
Actually, very excited to respond to this question. It's because I think the Kruze's journey of growth has been the journey of growth for me professional as well. As the need of the company changed, I had to learn. I had to educate myself. What do we need to do? I learned to ask maybe more difficult questions of our technical team and be more challenged and more, is this the best solution? Is this the best we can do? I think I've also been extremely fortunate to work with a really highly skilled and just generally good people technical team that has always not taken my request for additional research for testing as, oh my goodness, you're challenging us again and we're not interested in that, but rather is it in, are we really doing the best we can for you as a company? So I think the challenge has been selecting technology very often. Like, it's a skill to identify the vendor that best serves you for the specific need. Because Kruze is in a remote environment, I think it's definitely been a challenge for us how to unify us under one single environment while not preventing availability, which is one of the core, what is it called, the CIA, the triad. So the baseline always has been, does the team have proper access? Can the team communicate? And then, is the team communicating in the safest possible way? And based on those responses, we would make a decision on what additional layer we need to add. So it's been a journey. It didn't happen overnight. And when you hear sometimes about cyber incidents, people very often jump into judging that maybe the company didn't try hard enough or didn't put in place controls they had to. But what maybe it's not something that is largely known is that it's actually extremely difficult to prioritize measures that you put in place, because as a small business or as a growing business, you can only dedicate so much resources. The growth of the company, the salaries at the end of the month, and the rest of the business expenditure have just as much of a priority, and you need to stay afloat as a business. So it's actually difficult to decide what measures to put in place. So when I hear about the incidents, I always listen and start with compassion. I'm sorry it happened to you. I really hope it doesn't happen to us. So I'm sure I'm not the only one waking up to cybersecurity matters in the morning, starting the day like that. So
Absolutely. And that's such an important viewpoint, that compassion. Because it can happen to any organization. A lot of times it's not if, it's when. Point, being able to prioritize, because prior to starting Aspire Cyber, I worked for Bank of America. They spend over $1 billion a year on cybersecurity, and they still experience cybersecurity incidents. So it's a matter of that prioritization, and the smaller you are, you have a lot of competing priorities.
And also the areas of vulnerability for a company can vary. So maybe they hired, if they're in a remote environment, maybe they hired someone in a remote area that has poor connectivity and that employee is struggling to have connection through the VPN. But the VPN is not set to as a mandatory access control point, or as I'm missing the word right now that I need in my brain, but if it's not set as mandatory, they are going to make that exception for themselves, because they are going to prioritize their access versus safety or security. So I think it's easy to judge to conclusions that maybe a company didn't do a good job. And in some instances, maybe they really don't. More often than not, I think really responsible businesses in this day and age are really trying their best, but the threats out there are really
constantly changing.
And they're always changing. It's definitely hard to keep up sometimes.
Certainly. And I remember when we first started working together over a year now, that was one thing I noticed immediately once I got to understand that the governance you all had in place, the technology, security awareness training. I was truly impressed, because just the layers of security that you all have was a lot more mature than organizations much larger.
It's rewarding to hear that, to be honest, especially coming from a skilled and knowledgeable professional as yourself. I really think at Kruze that was the case and is the case because first and foremost, there's a lot of support from the leadership. There's an understanding at the leadership level that information security is the safety net where it basically secures the existence of the company itself. A ransomware attack could completely obliterate the business, and other threats, maybe of not the same scale or of a different kind, can have very detrimental, if not financially, definitely reputation-wise for company, and that can make them go under or lose substantial business. So I think having the support from the leadership at Kruze was the driving force. And also, again, working with the technical team that is very knowledgeable, is always on call, and really puts the effort in to give us the best advice and to answer the concerns that we have and address them. Support
Absolutely.
from the leadership team, I think it's step number one.
Yeah, indeed. So that brings us to SOC 2. Recently completed the second year going through your SOC 2 audit. I guess let's start off where year one, when you decided to do SOC 2, what went into that decision?
Yeah, I think for Kruze, like for many other companies out there, because SOC 2 is such a big financial and time investment, it was a decision based on the uptake in requests coming from our clients. And I very deliberately use the word investment here because it's a lengthy process, a cost, and you gotta have internal resources to address the technical aspects and the people aspects. And then you gotta work with the audit company, and they can vary in price depending on their size or their reputation. And for us, I was thinking about this earlier this year as we were completing our round 2 of SOC 2. I was reflecting over the challenges, and I think there was a lot of disorientation at first. How to start, what particular steps in the project planning should come first, how do we even prepare for the audit calls themselves. And I think one thing that really brought a lot of clarity for us was to work with a professional, work with a consultant, SOC 2 consultant that helped us structure, create a timeline. So I think that was really the deciding factor for us to really succeed in acquiring SOC 2 Type 1. And I would go with a consultant, should we go for SOC 2 Type 2 even more so, because the process is more lengthy and even more complex.
Yeah, totally agree. Just being able to have that guide, someone who knows all of the nuances of that compliance framework, guide you from A to Z.
I think kind of a cautionary tale that I would like to share from my experience is also the misconception that once you acquire a project management tool for SOC 2, all your problems will just go away on their own, which is such
autopilot.
Absolutely. And we fell into that trap, and I'm sure a lot of the companies that are very new to SOC 2 are falling into that trap as well.
The marketing advertising is really good. It makes it seem that way.
Very good. I don't know where they find the salespeople, but they are remarkable. So I actually have some thoughts about whether these tools are useful or not. And I truly believe they are 100% useful because they give you a perspective in real time on the controls that you put in place and that they allow. They're not perfect. They can't control everything. They're growing and developing their businesses themselves. They a lot of times rely on APIs that take time to be built and secure and to have proper connections. So it's not a simple problem to solve. At the same time, I think often they're built in ways that are really, really high level, and they're not necessarily applicable in every single aspect to you as a business. And it's one of the things that Kruze, where I struggled in the beginning of the project with. A good example would be the policies that they offer. They're amazing, but they are not necessarily applicable to you as a business. They do not reflect your technology. They do not reflect who you are as a business and what measures you have in place. And I really believe that the policies in place should reflect your company structure and the technology that you employ and the decisions that you made on how you want to handle specific situations. So while these tools are extremely useful, for sure, there's no doubt about that, I think the cautionary tale here is don't expect that they're going to make all your problems go away. Don't expect they're going to bring you to success on their own. They're a placeholder for things that you put in place, and they're at any given moment a moment in time picture of what you got in regards to controls.
Really good point. And since you can view them, as you kind of mentioned, where it puts structure around the project and it's that kind of central repository for everything you're going to need for the audit. It's not a magic button or easy button to say, put in the work. Now, did you find, as with SOC 2, you have to do an audit every year, so annually, did you find the readiness process was easier year 2 versus year 1? You kind of understood what to expect?
Yes. So at the time when I started managing SOC 2 Type 1, as we did last year and as well well this year. Still, it's a pretty complex process. I didn't have the formal training on what an audit is, what is an IT audit, what it is about. And I think once I got that formal training, it really clarified the process for me first. So I knew what expectations I have and what I want from the project and what expectations I have from the professional that helped us, the consultant that we work with, to achieve SOC 2 Type 1. And I think the other struggle was coordinating the formal, larger team compliance, whether it was people operational side or people management, or it was compliance training. It was extremely difficult to manage. So I think something that we've done differently, we've done it very well in the first round, but we've done it even better in the second round, is a general training with the team. And I had one of the best partners someone hoped for in this process. We have a director of training at Kruze, and she's just brilliant, and she knows how to work with people to make sure that everybody goes through the process. But I think often this is a huge struggle for people, because it's not just training. You also have a number of policies that people have to read through, understand, and acknowledge. So it's a lengthy process, and often people are engaged in their own day-to-day activity, and they put the compliance as till the last moment, or avoid it doing it at all costs. As you go through an audit, the expectation is that you, to perfection, are going to have everybody complete the training, and the training is of value, and it has recorded time when it was completed, and you have proof that it's not expired, is not older than 12 months, and so on and so forth. So I think the challenge still remains the aspect related to people. However, I knew what to expect, and I knew the timeline that it takes and the length of time that it takes to achieve that. So I think I was better equipped and better prepared in the second round. So I was completely burned out after the first round, and I was just fine after the second round. I think really having one-time experience gives you an overview on what the process is about and helps you set the right expectations for yourself as a project manager for the next round up.
Yeah, and anytime someone hears the word audit, that just induces stress, and it's just a word.
Going back to what I mentioned before, that it's so incredibly valuable to work with a professional, with a consultant that can help you prepare for the SOC 2. This is one of the aspects that is so incredibly often overlooked by people in the process.
Right.
Even if you're prepared to perfection for the audit calls, but you perform poorly in the calls themselves, and you don't present yourself as well positioned and well structured and with processes in place, you make yourself fail or make a lot of the hard work that you put in place to just go down the drain. So having someone that knows how the audit calls work and prepare your team, prepare you're the manager of the project, on how to properly interview with the auditor is extremely valuable. Whether you decide to do that every year, or whether you decide to do it just 1 year and kind of get a good grasp of what that is like, and you prepare the team yourself going forward, a business decision. But I think it's extremely valuable to work with someone to kind of give you kind of an understanding what these interviews are about and how to properly prepare.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, we talked about the cybersecurity consultant kind of guiding through the process. What was your experience with the auditors? So we know the SOC 2 audit has to be performed by a CPA firm.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Like you mentioned yourself, people hear the word audit and they feel scared and almost defensive immediately. I think SOC 2 audits may be run a little bit different than your normal audits in finance and accounting. And I think establishing a friendly relationship as much as possible, like a healthy work relationship with the auditor from the get-go, matters a lot. Their goal in the end is to prove to you and to your potential customers that you're doing your best and you're achieving the requirements of the compliance or the attestation that you're going through. And your goal is to present yourself as a company from the best viewpoint, of course, supported by the measures that you put in place. So establishing that relationship. Also, I think it matters how you select the people that you're going to work with. So it's possible to have an introductory call with the auditor and see if you're a match. Even from the personality perspective, you're going to meet with these people over multiple months, especially if you're doing SOC 2 Type 2. So having someone that you really enjoy having a conversation for at least an hour every week, I think it's valuable. I would say I personally had a really, really good experience with the auditors that we've worked so far with, and we've always had positive conversations and follow-ups. And when you see additional emails coming your way asking for additional evidence or maybe clarification questions, if you have a healthy relationship with the auditor, like a good working relationship with the auditor, you're not defensive at things like, oh my God, you're coming after me again. You're rather thinking, yeah, I'm here to help you and you're here to help me, and it's more productive and it's less stressful. So having an interview with the auditor that you're going to work with, making sure that you select a vendor that makes sense for your company from the price perspective, and also working with a company that has been around, has some sort of history, so your potential new customers trust the report that they issue. So those are, I think, 3 things.
Yeah, that's fantastic tips, especially the meeting with those auditors, kind of interviewing them, seeing what y'all have some synergy in terms of, is it someone I can meet with, like I said, at least 1 hour a week, every week for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
Because you're not just looking at the price, because the firm can be cheaper, but
Yes.
not going to get along with the auditors. You don't have
I connected with someone in my network, and this particular professional, that's all he does to within a large enterprise. And I asked him about what his experience has been, how he sees SOC 2, and he mentioned that companies that tend to have larger teams at the executive level, often they have the misconception that the team can just manage it, but often they do not have a formally trained in SOC 2 or experienced in SOC 2 professional. And again, they only rely on assumptions that, oh, we have a technical team, they should know it. It doesn't work like that, and they don't want the additional expense of working with a professional that can prepare the team and fail SOC 2 audit for real.
And it costs them more money, time, and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you disappoint your customers because you don't have to report when you said you would. It's conducive to loss of business. So it's worth really thinking it through.
Yeah, excellent point. Because with any of these compliance frameworks, there's so many nuances and just intricate details. And unless you're involved with it daily, their full-time job, you're not going to know it. Just because you know IT or cybersecurity doesn't mean you understand that cybersecurity framework. I see that pretty regular. Now, you mentioned as far as not disappointing your customers if you don't have that SOC 2. Have you seen, since you've been working for Kruze, have you seen an increase in customers and prospective customers requesting SOC 2?
Definitely, especially in the last 2 years. And I believe SOC 2 is not necessarily becoming ubiquitous, but I think it's a more sought after attestation because more and more businesses out there want certainty that you as a service provider are doing something to protect their data. And data is the most valuable thing and the most valuable asset companies have these days, besides money, which they can only make more of if they have their information safe. So I think it's almost an expectation if you're a company of any given size and of any good reputation, it's almost expected of you to have either SOC 2 Type 1 or Type 2, depending on your industry. Very likely we're going to see an uptick in GRDP and definitely CCPA and CCRP and all the other ones. But I personally seen it at Kruze that we have an increasing number of customers diligently coming year after year and asking for the SOC 2 report, and new customers, incoming customers signing with us because we have SOC 2 and because we have a tech team and CISO on our team. So it's definitely a concern that is becoming more prevalent among incoming customers and in current ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that. I've seen firsthand how just being able to demonstrate that compliance and provide customers with that assurance drives sales and helps build that trust. You look at it like SOC 2 is going to require an independent verification by the auditor or ISO 27000. So those are going to have a lot more weight in the customer's eyes or prospective customer's eyes than a self-attestation. So yes, we're good to go. Trust us. Your data's secure.
There's the flip of the coin. I had the instances, and I heard that from our sales team, that we have customers coming in and they see our price point and they immediately say, oh, you're too expensive for us. And we want to consider this and this and this and other service provider. Then we kind of ask them the question, do those other service providers that you mentioned take this measure and this measure and this measure? And we have a dedicated set of documents that kind of demonstrate what we do. And I ask them, just do your due diligence, because I think especially small businesses often make the assumption that if you're an accounting firm, if you're a finance firm, then you're responsible enough to put measures in place. But that's a fallacy that is absolutely not
big
correct.
Time, right?
Yeah. Often companies, again, these are companies that are not tech companies. They don't think about information security as the first thing they do in the morning. They're going to think about their deliverables, financial deliverables. So information security very often comes as a second thought. And again, surprising enough, customers coming to us often change their mind when they see that the other vendors they interviewed actually not only do they have SOC 2, they have a hard time demonstrating they have any measures in place, consistent measures in place to secure their data. And that is really a strong decision maker for them to stay with us very often.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And that's another thing I can applaud Kruze Consulting on is you all have been more proactive about it.
Right.
Because in my line of work, if you look at the different regulations, that's why we have those cybersecurity regulations too, because companies aren't doing it. They're not. Right. You don't make them do it. They're not going to do it in most cases. Y'all have been proactive and really prioritizing securing customer data because it's just a good business decision and it's going to help build that trust and your reputation. That's invaluable when you think about organizations' reputation. You can't put a price on it. You're right. It's a fallacy to think, oh yes, accounting firm, they're taking the proper measures. Don't assume that. Trust but verify is the key.
Trust but verify. Very well said.
Yeah, definitely have to to do your due diligence. Absolutely. Now, segue to that is I think Kruze has a really good model on how you're leveraging your MSP, fractional CISO, and just kind of talk to us about how you all are taking that approach as a small business, being able to leverage those external partners to definitely strengthen your cybersecurity posture and provide better services for your customers.
So Kruze, like many companies out there, probably more often than not struggle finding information security and technical professionals that stay in the role. And consistency is key of success very often in cybersecurity specifically, and probably in all the areas of business. But in cybersecurity, if someone wakes up one morning and says, I'm done, and that they're the only employee covering cybersecurity, that company is in trouble.
Right.
So having an internal team of multiple people that are employed full-time can be extremely costly because it's a field in high demand. And first and foremost, it's incredibly difficult to hire people, to find people of quality, well-trained and with passion for the job, and make them stay long-term in the role. So that was kind of the driving force for Kruze. Cost, but also quality. How can we ensure that we have a good technical team that helps us at any hour, which is not achievable with just one person in the role, or even two sometimes? That can be difficult depending on the size of the company. But secondly, we are not 1,000 people company yet. So can we fully engage highly trained professional in the CISO role 40 hours per week? Probably not, because our needs are not there yet. However, we need guidance. We need to make decisions and run certain questions by someone that have seen it all in the end. And that's why as a company, we made the decision to work with external partners. And again, it's a financial decision, but it's also a quality driven decision, because we can engage you at the skill level that you have for 20 hours, 30 hours, whatever number of hours we need. And you can work with other clients and make sure that you're at the level that you're interested in. So both parties benefit in the end.
Yeah. Win-win.
Win-win, exactly. As for the technical team, I actually had this conversation with someone internally, and they said, why don't we hire someone? Why don't we have a internal technical team? And I shared with them how much we spend for the fabulous team, the technical team that we work with right now, versus what we would spend if we had someone internally. And again, it's level of engagement. We don't need technical support 24 hours per day. We're not that kind of enterprise. But when fires happen, they are there for us. So it's kind of the same model. How can we make sure that we're covered when we need, but we're responsible financially? And how do we find the best team that can serve our best interests? What team can we select to make sure that they're skilled enough to cover specifically our needs for the industry where we are? So that's kind of leading factors for us working with external vendors for tech support and for CISO services. And I honestly think for Kruze at this moment in time is the best decision. We've been very satisfied so far, so it's worked well for us. And maybe when we're 1,000 company people or more, we have a full team in-house. But right now, this is really the best for us.
Yeah, I think y'all have done it masterfully up to this point. Early on when we first met, I mentioned that you have an eye for talent. So you certainly pick some good external partners. So that's really key. Kind of go back to what you mentioned earlier, just establishing those relationships and making sure, okay, you're picking those partners and vendors. Are they going to be around? Provide that continuity that we need. Good insights. Moving on to emerging technologies. What emerging technologies excite you at this point?
I'm going to have to share response, Derrich.
Everyone has it. AI.
So my personal view on that is that I already use it for language processing, which I think it does a phenomenal job. I've tested it again and again and again, and it does a really, really good job with language processing. And it can be very useful in a business environment for communication, for research, for you name it. However, I am looking forward to a time when AI can be used for where it can be applied in adaptable technology for cybersecurity. I read an article about that, I think a couple months ago I think it's called MIT Business Review or MIT something. They have a magazine. I can't remember what it's called. And they had an article about the adaptive technologies and how right now, for example, for antiviruses, we rely on signatures, but how often are we able, is it even scalable to update those and keep an antivirus up to date? It can't make changes every day. And the hope is that adaptive technology would overcome that reliance on signature and would have other methods of recognition and protection in place and scale up and down as needed. So that's the hope, and that's the kind of technology that I'm really watching closely and hoping for to see it maturing fast enough for me to benefit in my career, my personal career in cybersecurity.
Yes, very exciting. Possibilities are unlimited.
Yes.
Kind of round it up, get ready to wrap up this interview. I'm curious, what do you know today that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
I wish I have discovered how fun and engaging cybersecurity is maybe 5 years years ago. Again, because my career in cybersecurity was kind of unexpected and it was kind of a discovery, I would say later in life, I feel like I would be at a different level of mastery in cybersecurity that I'm really striving for if I knew. There's also this general misconception on that cybersecurity is kind of doomed to make you fail no matter what you do, no matter how skilled you are. But I think that's only halfway true. There's also a misconception that cybersecurity changes at such a rapid pace that it's impossible to keep up. But I don't think that's 100% accurate. I think technology supporting the principles of cybersecurity change rapidly, but that's true for technology in all areas of business, not just cybersecurity. However, the principles of cybersecurity are somewhat kind of the same. Some of them change. The recommendations change in time, but the principles remain somewhat stable or somewhat the same in time. And I think as long as you have a good baseline of what the principles of cybersecurity are, it's not that hard to educate yourself on technology, and then the field becomes interesting, exciting, and fresh and new versus this is a field that is doomed to make me fail and every day I need to live in fear. It's an exciting field. It's a field that can be very engaging from multiple perspectives rather than let's all fear cybersecurity. So I wish I knew that before. That is an exciting field that it can be engaging rather than it's a field that is scary every day.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I'll agree to your point. The fundamentals stay the same. It's the technology changes, but the fundamentals really just the goal of securing the confidentiality, integrity, availability be the same fundamental principles that we're focused on. Great. Then you mentioned you're working on your second master's now.
Yeah.
Through the Harvard Extension program. Looking at your upcoming courses in that program, what course are you looking forward to taking?
I'm gonna sound as a total nerd, but I'm so extremely excited about this class that I'm starting actually today. And it's a class related to securing networks. And I wanted to take a class about networks for the longest time. And I looked at the curriculum yesterday because they just posted the updated information about it. And they really go into depth. Again, I know maybe that sounds ridiculous, but I'm actually very, very excited to see what new I can learn. There are aspects of the class that cover technology, not just principles and recommendations. So that's another area that I find very engaging and interesting. So yeah, that's what's coming out.
Yeah, I find networking interesting. I thought you were going to say like C++ or coding. That would have been nerdy.
I'm planning on taking a Python class. It's kind of the starting point, I feel like, because it's an easy enough language. It's an intuitive enough language that can teach you about that mindset that you need to have or like methods of problem solving. From there, you can jump into something more advanced. But I'm definitely starting with an easy language that is more intuitive. C++ sounds intimidating.
Definitely. All right. So the last question I have for you is, what is a book, movie, or mentor that has had a profound impact on your life, either professionally and or personally?
Yes. So not direct mentor, but I think through the way he taught his class, Professor Lucky at the University of Portland in his cybersecurity class really inspired me to look at cybersecurity from a very different perspective and become extremely interested in it to the point that changed basically the trajectory of my career. I was very interested in continuing to be an operations professional, and I ended up switching direction completely and going into cybersecurity. So indirectly, he became an inspiration for me to switch careers because I think he had a very compassionate way and kind way of teaching his class that made the field be interesting to me rather than intimidating and scary. And as for the books, I would say, and again, this is going to sound very cliche, I apologize in advance for that, How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I know the book gets a lot of bad rap, but what I see again and again in my field is that people very often think about cybersecurity professionals and cybersecurity teams as these isolated islands that don't need to talk to anyone and they just operate in their own little world. But it's such a huge fallacy because if you have a good quality communication with your team, there's trust. And then the team is more interested in completing training, mandatory and non-mandatory. You can be an inspiration for them to continuously educate themselves about cyber threats out there that can be personal, that can be related to their work environment. So having good communication skills and being appreciated, and maybe it sounds like lack of modesty, but appreciated and highly viewed by your team as someone that knows what they're talking about and help them be successful as well. And often in cybersecurity, people are viewed as the weak link, regardless of the cyber budget, where the IT budget you have, you can empower your team through good, high quality communication to be the strong link, the people that take the pause before they click on an email that says, urgently open this, urgently make a payment. If you educate them, if you inspire them, if you thank them for taking the time to complete that training and for reaching out to you and asking you, is this a valid request, or is it a phishing email, which honestly happens a lot. Kruze, I think saying thank you so much for taking the time to Slack me this and checking before clicking is the key to success for a company. So that's why this book, I feel like it's inspirational, it's life-changing, and it can help you be successful in your role rather than just being a cliche book.
It's a classic. It's one of my favorites. So I totally agree. Well, Tatiana, I really appreciate your time today. You give us some great insights and tips and just actionable steps that viewers implement ASAP, especially regarding SOC 2 companies. If they haven't gone down that road yet, their customers are going to start asking sooner than later. So.
Yes, it's been honestly a huge pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's been way more relaxing than I anticipated as well. This is my first podcast, and again, I enjoyed it greatly. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
If you receive value from this episode, I invite you to subscribe and like so that you're the first to know when we release new episodes. Also, check out CMMCproof.com to learn more about the arsenal of resources that we provide to equip you to conquer CMMC. We'll see you next time.